Hello, this is Xica Henley, and today's podcast is produced for my Global Perspectives on Curriculum and Instruction course. It is a reaction to 3 Linda Hammond-Darling videos, Becoming Internationally Competitive, Dan Rather's interview on Finland, and The Flat World in Education. In Linda Hammond-Darling's video, she focuses on one major theme. We are not preparing our students to be 21st century thinkers, and we are not investing in education with the intention of everyone being successful. In this podcast, I highlight some of her key ideas from these videos and relate them to arguments made in Stephen J. Ball's article, Big Policy, Small World, An Introduction to International Perspectives in Education Policy. In her 2010 video, Being Internationally Competitive, Darling-Hammond compares other, more successful countries to the United States. She notes that other countries have more rigorous teacher preparation programs and more time is allotted for professional development. Other nations require teachers to participate in 3-year programs and allow for 15 hours per week of preparation time, while in the United States, some teachers receive as little as 3 hours of preparation time in a week. And we also are notorious for our programs in which teachers can begin working after a 6 to 8 week crash course in education. In her 2012 interview with Dan Rather on Finland, Darling-Hammond also notes that problem solving and critical thinking are highlighted for its students. She notes that Finland organizes its curriculum around 21st century skills, critical thinking, questioning, and project-based learning. Finland expects students to be able to put ideas out there and defend their ideas. In contrast, American schools don't particularly highlight critical thinking and independence, but instead memorization and regurgitation, which is demonstrated in our standardized testing system. We focus on multiple choice responses while limiting courses like science and languages that encourage critical thinking. Darling-Hammond also notes the lack of unity in the United States. Each state is treated completely differently. Each state can be left to its own devices, resulting in some states that can compete with the most competitive nations and others that are toe-to-toe with some of the most underperforming nations. Although nuances and populations must be taken into consideration when you're thinking about education and how to best support a population, this freedom has resulted in an uneven system in which certain states are just simply more successful than others. And so that is a strange thing to think about when we have one nation, as we should be unified, but each state in itself is almost like its own individual nation, and that is having a very negative impact on the country overall. And now, as I watched these videos, I could not help but think about Stephen J. Ball's 2007 article, Big Policy, Small World, An Introduction to International Perspectives in Education Policy. In Ball's article, he really highlighted how a nation's economy impacts education policy. Essentially, economies drive education systems. When we think of our economy, we are very much so a pull yourself up by your bootstrap society. We have clear winners, we have clear losers, and this reflects in our education system. Linda Darling-Hammond says that we need to bring up the rest of the system and value every child in the community, which is something that our economy is not really based on. We are competitive and we're power hungry. We do not want to share. My success does not equal your success. And this actually reminds me of the fight to combine 2 elementary schools in the city of Chicago, Jenner and Ogden. So the schools are located fairly close to one another, but the demographics are different. Jenner had a dwindling population and Ogden was overpopulated. So the principal at the time, who has since passed away, he suggested that the 2 schools combine because, combining those resources would be the most effective thing to do. The schools were close enough and it would also just benefit both populations of students being able to share all of those resources and all of those experiences. However, this became a big issue because people were more upset about the kids mixing than the positive benefit that would occur if the students mixed. So Darling-Hammond notes that in education, your success is my success. However, we really as Americans, we really shoot ourselves in the foot by creating an educational system that is set up to ensure that some students fail while other students succeed. So just kind of bringing all this together, concluding everything again. As I bring this to a close, I had to end with a quote from Animal Farm. So in the novel Animal Farm, we all know that the animals overthrow the farms to take it over for themselves. And as you progress through the novel, it slowly begins to revert back to its original state. So at one point, all of the other animals, they notice that the commandments that have been written on the barn wall have changed. So instead of it saying originally what it said, which was all animals are created equal, it said that all animals are created equal, but some animals are more equal than others. And I really feel like this is a representation of our education system. We'll never get ahead until we realize that best practice is best practice, and every child has to have a fair shot at being successful. If not, we all fail. Some people are not more equal than others. Some people do not deserve a better education than others. We all deserve that fair shot. And so as I leave, I do want to leave with this question. Do we think that American education, does it really want to be great? Or does it simply want to talk about being great? So thanks so much for listening to this podcast. If you would like to contact me, just leave me a message in this blog or send me an email. Thanks so much for listening.